Alright, Thundercats Roar. Uh, I'm appalled by it. A lot of older fans are, and they have right to be. It's not even so much that it's goofy and it's silly. It's just what it promotes for the franchise in and of itself. Let's talk about that for a moment. So, the original Thundercats cartoon, I rushed home from school every day. I would go to my little 13-inch TV, turn the top knob onto U and the bottom knob onto 24, and would eagerly await for Thundercats to come on. It was in the afternoon. It was around, I want to say 4:30 that it came on. Each week, the young Lord of the Thundercats, Lion-O, had to learn a lesson from his peers. Even though he was the leader and they would follow him, he had to learn from them because of the circumstances of them being stranded on Third Earth, or our Earth, which is just so far in the future, who knows. That cartoon wasn't just about action. That cartoon was about the stories that were told. They actually had to make special routes for themselves so that they would stop destroying the little bits, I guess they were, I don't know. But there were little people that had small villages, and they were microscopic, but they were able to actually contain Lion-O and tell him that you're destroying our villages. Your vehicles are doing it. It's not just you, the mutants too, but we caught you. So Lion-O actually will agree to create paths, and they put up signs. They taught respect. Why should they respect? They're giant cat people. They have weapons of mass destruction. Why should they respect them? They taught the lesson to accept people for their differences. In one episode in particular, a spaceship crashes near Cat's lair, of course, and there's a guy in a white robe. He looks very, very trusting. He looks like he might be the space sheriff that was in the SOS. Well, then there's this ugly monster. The lesson was that you can't judge a book by its cover. The ugly monster was the space sheriff. The guy dressed in white was a thief. He actually steals the Sword of Omens from Lion-O. Oh, that makes him sound incompetent. Well, the Sword of Omens in and of itself, it's such an important part of the Thundercat, the Thunderian culture, that only their leader has. It's a symbol, right? So, in that Thundercats Roar preview, where Lion-O holds up his pointy stabby stick, the Sword of Omens, which gives him magical powers, that's just really degrading to what it is. And, I'm not a parent, but as parents who want to share their things, like from their childhood, with their kids so that it might help to instill certain values into them, that's why they want a serious Thundercats cartoon. That's why they want to be able to sit and enjoy something new that's something old with their kids. When you sit there and say, oh, well, Thundercats Roar is meant for a different generation, well, you have to remember, the parent is sitting there watching this with their child. So this is a parent-child bonding time. They can say, when I was a kid, this and that. They can relate to this. They can watch it and understand what their kid is doing. It's most likely male bonding time, but even if it's father-daughter bonding time, or if the mom is really cool, right? And let's not even forget Lion-O. Let's move on to Cheetara, for example. Cheetara, she unfortunately was very typically 80s. She had these psychic powers she couldn't control, and she had these premonitions, but she's a strong female character. She wasn't trying to get with Tigra. She didn't have a thing for Panthro, and obviously she wasn't trying to jump Lion-O's bones so she could be the queen of the Thundercats. No, she was a strong female character. Yeah, she's a cheetah, so it's a feminine, she has super speed, but you didn't mess with Cheetara. Mum-Ra tried going after her in her dreams. He thought he could target her. She was able to muster enough psychic power, a la Jean Grey, to force Mum-Ra out into his coffin. Put him back into his sarcophagus. She was so tough that when Lion-O went through the trials to be the Lord of the Thundercats, right? She was so tough that he couldn't accept losing to her. He couldn't accept defeating her, excuse me. He beat her in a foot race. Now, she can only maintain her top speed for just so long, but Lion-O was able to outrun her just because she wasn't able to maintain her full speed for the whole time, and he accused her of throwing it because there's no way that he could lose. respected her enough to feel like, if I defeated you, there must have been something wrong with that. There's just no way. You know, and all throughout the series, Chitara just stood alone as this like strong character. You just knew that if she was involved, she's basically the storm of the team. So seeing her acting silly and seeing her acting so out of place, just it does not work. You know, she's very she's very regal and commanding in spite of, you know, her having her very 80s look. But still, you know, even in the first episode, you knew she was important in somebody. You know, and then in these episodes, in the original Thundercats cartoon, where they were hanging out in Cat's Lair, they weren't just hanging out doing silly things. They were being productive. Tiger was an architect, Panther was trying to do the maintenance, you know, and they're all just kind of being like good, positive role models for anyone that's really watching it. You know, they're trying to say, you know, use your time wisely. Even with Wily Kit and Wily Cat, who were the comic relief, not as much as Snarf, but even so, they too had to, sometimes, they were the plot device that caused the conflict, and they had to be mature and own up to it. They had to be, the kids had to be adults sometimes. There is no promise of any of that with Thundercats Roar. With Thundercats Roar, it presents itself as being silly. It presents itself as not even taking itself seriously, and we got the 2011 Thundercats cartoon, which went under, but that's because it just wasn't supported by Cartoon Network. Cartoon Network will dump a series if they can't make money off it through toys. If the toys weren't selling well, they were going to get rid of their cartoons. If, you know, like, it just was all about money. It's kind of why they dumped Masters of the Universe, because it probably wasn't making them enough money. So, Thundercats Roar is just disrespectful to your kids. Having them watch that, where it's most likely going to be a 10-minute episode, a commercial, and then a 10-minute episode, that ruins their attention span. You know, they can't sit there for too long. That's like saying, well, kids' attention spans are too short. Then make something compelling enough to hold your kids' attention that they'll want to see how the character in that episode is going to get out of this situation. Have them sitting there on the edge of their seat. Write something compelling enough that they'll want to know what happens. Don't just make it silly. If you need to make it silly, fine. You know, but at least Adventure Time. Adventure Time is very silly. Many times you can't really, you know, take it seriously, but if you pay attention to Adventure Time, it is dark. It is dark, and there are things that happen to the characters. You as a kid wouldn't pick up on it, but it's one of those things that I think people will go back to and watch it and be like, oh. And there's a lot of things that are like in there that even a viewer that's like mature and able to realize, hey, what's that about? You know, and there's so many things like there's a story that's been interwoven from episode 1, and it's been going on. That's good. That's what kids need. They can realize that there's been this ongoing story, and it's told in a way that anyone of any age can watch it. That's fine. But I don't see that with Thundercats Roar. Instead, I see goofy cartoon jumping around, and it has the likeness of something that could be very good. But no, it's being ruined. That is why so many people are reacting negatively to Thundercats Roar. That is why they're reacting so harshly to it. People need to understand it's not that it's not meant for me. It's not that it's not for you. It's that it really makes it seem like nothing is serious anymore. It makes it seem like people can't enjoy heroes anymore, which that's not true at all because of how successful the Marvel movies are. It just makes it seem like we can't even tell good stories that'll inspire you to be a better version of yourself. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Make sure to give this video a like, do subscribe, and check out my other videos in the right-hand column.